What vital role do men play in the socialization of children?
Well, certainly we play a very important role for the upbringing, their values, shaping their values of how they should act, their behavior. I know for my 5 kids that I have, that I'm blessed with my wife, Shrika, who's in the audience, we try to be that example for them. And so shaping their morals, shaping their values, shaping their perspectives in life is very important for us as a family.
Amen. Very good, very good. Pastor Jeff, same question. What role, you explain it to us from your perspective, what role do men play in the socialization of children? And Dr. Wallace, how much you think about it as well?
Well, one of the things that I live by, just a law for my life, is that I believe that fathers love their daughters, yet they raise their sons. And so one of the things that I try to pride myself on when raising my children is at a certain age, I spoke to my wife and I said, listen, you need to raise our daughter. I'm going to raise our son. And the different principles and things that the Lord has showed me I need to establish in his life were not just spiritual principles, but simply life principles. Because in this world, we're not going to be in church all the time. We're going to have to learn how to handle life. And so as a father, you have to guard those principles, and not only guard those principles, make sure they become a critical part of your child's thinking and the way that they live so that they can have the quality life that Doc just got finished talking about. We want all of our children to have a quality life. And in fact, we want our children to live better than we have lived. So to establish that, as men, we need to raise these sons and allow the mothers to raise those daughters. And as men, we need to love these daughters. And so that's, I believe, one of the most critical roles that we play in life as it pertains to raising our children.
Thank you. Dr. Miles, same question for you. What role do men play in the socialization of children?
Well, children are always watching everything we do and everything we say. And so what we're doing is we're modeling behavior. And they're going to imitate our behavior when they get older. So we need to be cognizant of that in terms of everything we do with kids. We know that the male tends to identify more with the male and mimic what the male does, and the same thing with the female does. But it's a plus when you have both parents that are involved in raising the child and discussing what measures you're going to take, how to discipline, and discipline does not always mean corporal punishment. And so it's important to have that communication, to have your kids feel as though they can talk to you. I know in our practice, the biggest issues we face is communication issues, relationships. Relationships are very difficult. Mother-daughter, father-son. I mean, it's terribly rampant in terms of issues that they're having out here today. It's a whole different world. So it's very important to model that behavior. It's very important to communicate with them and be mindful that you're always being watched and you're always being imitated.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me ask you, Doc, while we're on that, and this is not on paper, but I'm gonna ask you this anyway. Is there a I think we know the answer to it. Is there a vast difference between the children who have an active relationship with their father versus the ones who do not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a void that exists there if they don't have a good relationship. And what they're going to do is they're going to seek out to identify with someone else or to join groups. And that's why you find some of these young people who are lost, and they end up, and when I say lost, not physically lost, but lost in terms of direction in their life. And they reach out to groups that show them affection and show them attention. And it might not be the best place to go for them. So it's very, very important.
Brother Chris, I know you're very active in Vinland midget football. Each year, 150, 200 kids come out. I'm probably short with that. We don't see as many fathers as we need to see come out with them. Maybe you see fathers on game day, but with the children there that you see, you're down on the ground with them, you and your coaches are with these children, the one that's fathers active and the one that, what are some of the main problems you see or that you might have with those who do not have an active father day to day in their lives?
First, I want to touch just the socialization aspect of it.
Sure.
What I've come to see and notice is how important a two-parent household is. And I'm not from that. So there was a lot of things coming up in the city, born and raised, that I had to learn on my own. And mother loved, amazingly, but there was just certain things as a woman she could not teach a man. So as far as the socialization aspect of it, I think coming from a two-parent home helps tremendously with the kids that we have seen at VMFL. Now, to the question that you asked, what I've seen, we have a lot of single-parent households and the kids that show up. In fact, there's that I can even attest to this, that it's more mothers bringing their child or even their daughter, son or daughter to football practices or cheerleading practices. The guys that do show up great, we need them, but there's an absence that I've seen that fathers aren't there as much. So the ones that are there, great. We embrace them, we allow them to volunteer, we allow them to help out, but we see more women at the football field than we do the fathers.
Very good. I could go on for hours about that. How does this affect? Never mind. Let me ask Daryl a question. We'll go. Daryl, you're out there with him, and you see that happening. And Daryl, I want to ask you is this in your interaction with these young kids or young men? What are some of the biggest differences that you see dealing with a young man who doesn't have a male presence or a father figure in his life?
With me, I've been coaching for about 9 years now, and I've seen all different types of kids that that struggles with not having a male figure. So during practices, you'll see a kid having anger problems or being isolated, and I see that me. I've been a parent for about say 9 years now. I got full custody of my daughter at the age of 3, so with me, it was that, learning, getting back to the foundation of, the do's and don'ts. And, I have a 9-year-old daughter, so it's hard, sometimes try to teach her life, and I'm a guy, but, thank God 2 years ago, God put my fiance in my life, so,
When I came up, and maybe you guys can help me with this, when I came up, I came up on a street where everybody had a nuclear family. Everybody was married, everybody was home. I didn't even know what really divorce was. I mean, the whole block, everybody's dad was home. And so if I didn't respect, or to put it this way, if I had a problem with my dad, Mr. Tommy next door wouldn't let me get away with it either. There's always a man's presence, always. Well, one time, me and my dad got into it, it got loud. I called myself leaving the house, and Mr. John was down the street, and I'm walking down the street. He said, "Come here." And he said, "Look, I don't care what happened. You was wrong. That's your father's house. I don't care what happened." That's right. So if a man was always present on our block, what changed? What happened? And I remember when my daughter Jazz was filming. She went to school, and she was one of few kids whose parents were together. in elementary school. One of few. So Dr. Wallace, and what happened to our black nuclear family? What happened to our families? Was it welfare? Was it, y'all remember Claudine? Was it Claudine? She got paid to keep James Earl Jones out the house, right? Was it Claudette? I mean, what was it?
I think there's a lot of things probably that would impact that. Number one, relationships are very difficult, as I said. In terms of marriages, 52% of all marriages divorce within the first 5 to 7 years.
Has it always been like that, or is that current?
It's generational. Back during my grandparents' time, I don't remember anybody being single. They were always, you marry forever. Now you hear couples, I hear people say, well, we're going to try it. So that says something about the commitment that they're making.
Yeah.
They're not making a long-term commitment. They're not seeing this as something that's going to last forever, as we used to do 3 generations ago. So our values in society toward marriage, toward relationships, has changed significantly. And people are very liberal about it. And we also have the pressures of society. Society is different than it was back during that time period.
And these things hurt our family. I know.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say this. Early in my career, I was in law enforcement just like you, but earlier in my career, I discovered the overall scheme, and I'm not being one of those conspiracy theory type persons. I discovered the overall scheme, especially against our community, because I literally was a part of Camden's drug elimination program. I understood the plan was to revitalize the city, and I understood a part of that plan was to go to the women and have them get involved in 2-year schoolings, some trade schools and other things of that nature. So once they got involved and they were in trade schools and they were just about complete, that's when we started doing the city sweeps. Who did we lock up? Men. And so we locked up men and we left boys on the street, and this is when the Sons of Malcolm X and all those other gangs started taking over. What were those sons fighting for? They were fighting for their masculinity. And so when there's no man in the house, as much as we see homosexuality and everything on the uprise, there are kids who start out fighting for their masculinity. And when there's no man around, then they start being influenced by the things that are popular more so than they are the things that are right. And so a young man trying to be a man without a man is one of the most difficult things our community has ever seen. And so when we, and I'm going to say it because I was a part of it, when we were locking up, sometimes unjustly, but as a black man, whenever you said something, then you were shut down. We were sometimes unjustly locking up men who only had, a half pound of weed or a dime bag of weed. You get 20, 30 years. How would you like to grow up with 20, 30 years without a father? How would you like to grow up when there's the bully on the block, but you don't have a dad to go home to? Suddenly you become a part of the thing that they demand you become a part of, and you start receiving their thoughts, and now it has bled over into generations where now, since I never saw a man in the home, why would I want to be in a home with a woman? I need to be free, because that's the narrative. Let me knock all these honeys out. Let me see how many notches I can get my belt. Why? Because that was the narrative on the streets, and it was an intended narrative for our children, our young men, and our daughters to learn what was the next narrative that came. You don't need a man. You don't need a man. And so sons don't have a father. Young ladies are growing up learning you don't need a man because they saw mama do it without a man. And thank God for mama, but that's the poison in the society that has caused us to now recognize how important being a father is in our communities. Every one of you that has a child, if you're a man, you need to be a father, not just a daddy. You need to be a present father, because you can literally help change the culture and the climate of our communities by just simply being in the home, being with that wife, and being a part of that child's life.
Amen. Thank you for that. And I would encourage too, and you guys on the panel, I hope you agree with me, that some brothers out here might be thinking, well, my kid's grown now. No, he still needs you. She still needs you to make the phone call. You may not have been what you should have been then, but you can be what they need right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I speak on that?
Yes, you can.
My mom and dad, like, they've been married ever since I was a kid, and when I graduated, they got a divorce. So it was like growing up, like they always fought, like they did nothing but fight and argue every day. So their relationship was so broken that they didn't have time to, you know, like me. With me, I like to have fun, so for me, I was always looking forward to my dad, you know, come home. You know, he didn't have to say much. I just wanted him just, you know, just to lift me up, say, hey, what's up, son? But like, you know, he's just so mad that, you know, he just goes straight to this room and like, my dang dad, you don't care about me. So for years, I held on to that. I held on to it. And so when I had my daughter, you know, I said, I'm not gonna do that, you know? So.
Yeah, man, thank you for that, man. Yeah. Thank you.
And let me just say, one of the things we need to do also is reach out to others. We need to not just exist in a cocoon,
Right.
but we need to reach out and be involved in our community and reaching out to other young men and other young women. I know my wife, before we got married, worked in adoptions. And as you know, we became foster parents.
Yeah.
And we adopted kids, and my oldest son was in an orphanage in Philadelphia. And I say that because he was older when we adopted him, brought him in, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the issues he had was how to relate to females.
Yeah.
Because he was in a home for boys that he grew up with. So his relationship with my wife wasn't in turmoil, but he just didn't know how to relate to her. And so he had to be taught that. And there's a lot of young people out there that need help for us to bring them in if we have the means to do so in terms of helping them as well as just helping ourselves.
Thank you. You guys having a good time? Yeah. We're gonna take I was informed by our executive producer, we're gonna take a 2-minute break. Give God some praise.